Oh, God.
It's very bright, isn't it? Hello, everyone. Hopefully my voice can carry us through here. Now, this is an odd session, and I'm very excited about this, because we don't often invite digital guys to this conference. Ooh. Frankly, they're not welcome.
See you later, guys.
Yes. But this is odd, because Sabio has been very honest and frank and candid about what's going on in his organisation. And just from the title, I think what we should do is give an overview of what you do, and then also address the sort of main question of why you're trying to give up some of your budget.
Yeah, so, hi everyone, I'm Sab, that big face there. I've been at Arcadia Group for 2 years, and my job there is to essentially harmonise 7 brands into like a cohesive digital strategy, make sure we're making the most of our digital investment, work with our third-party partners, kind of grow those partnerships, and yeah, introduce best practice and stuff. But one of the things that I found that got sort of stigmatised with my title was the sort of merge between having someone who had digital in their title and someone who did performance. And so the two things get sort of banded as one. And so every kind of pound you spend has to come back with a number. And that's one of the kind of mindsets that we're trying to change, is that sort of short-termism.
Yeah. So did you actually genuinely try and give up some of your budget, or is this just me being creative with language?
No, to some degree it's true, yeah. So it's more about not exactly the magical mix of a 60-40, but definitely like a balanced approach to your marketing investment. So we have gone almost so far in one direction, not to name a band, but we've gone so far down one way that we've lost track, or to a certain degree, of a lot of the marketing choices that our consumers are there to be exploited by, or to be kind of to consume our marketing. That we've just lost track of it. We haven't invested in it. And so where we were maybe 7, 8 years ago, and I'd imagine then we were probably with much lower levels of investment, admittedly, but we were probably at about a 50-50 mix.
Yeah. And
now I'd say we're at a 20-80 mix in favour of digital.
That seems crazy for something like fashion.
Yeah.
Does it not? What do you think it should be?
I don't know if there's I remember when I came in, there was a panel coming on, and they were talking about, not necessarily about the right mix, but talking about really what we're trying to do is get in front of the right consumers with the right messages at the right times.
Yeah.
And that should start with a channel agnostic view of going kind of what are their habits, what are their consumption behaviours, what should that strategy look like, before you get to the very bottom of it and going, so, you know, we have to convert these guys, because we do have kind of day-to-day, year-to-year, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter targets. Yeah. But at some point you have to obviously take your sort of 3-year plan. And the panel just before this, they spoke really eloquently about having a North Star, maybe not in that term, but having a kind of 3-year or longer-term plan that your short-term marketing efforts have to ladder into. Yeah. But if you only ever talk about your short-term successes in those board meetings, and 1 week you're missing, or 1 month you're missing, then actually that becomes the focus. And so you need to balance off those two conversations.
Are your marketing departments divided? So you have digital one side and traditional the other side?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have...
So do you fight for budget?
No, because there's only one side of that argument that's winning them. So there's no real fight.
There's no battle.
It's an interesting question. So not only do we have 7 brands, and actually within those 7, there's a digital team and a brand team. Yeah. And whilst the investment balance has shifted completely to the digital side, which is fortunate for me because it's kept me in a job, the brand focus more and more has become on organic and kind of a sort of organic social blogs and content in that way, which is not wrong at all. However, you do need to then supplement that with bringing audience into that journey rather than those existing people that come to your site finding it anyway.
See, what I struggle with is on the back of all this research that we have, and we've had it for years, we've had 20, 30 years, why is it so difficult to sell that concept internally? Why is it difficult for you to sell branding at Arcadia Group?
I think it's the nature of our... What does that mean?
It's your mic. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I think to a certain degree it's our industry, in that we see a lot of fashion rival brands talking about or using influencers and using social media, which again is sort of it suits the audience and it's kind of fine. And a lot of the disruption that's happened has happened from the smaller brands. And I think when Magda was talking, she highlighted that those smaller brands are seen as disruptors, and then we take out of that their successes, which have come from good performance/digital execution. and again, that debate was around. There's a needs must part of that, which is they don't have the investments to do bigger executions and kind of 3-year kind of brand commitments. And yeah, to a certain degree, we follow suit. Over that same period of time, we've had competitors come in and snaffle up close to £1 billion of the market opportunity. So where we were 2.5 billion, we're like 1.8 now. And that share of market size has decreased. And so you have to get better at turning the dial on execution, on the kind of conversion stuff of your digital. Yeah. But at the same time, if you're plateauing in your new customer mix, and the premise behind the how brands grow is around that new customer growth, then your front door, if you like, the number of people coming to that will reduce. Yeah.
So you subscribe to the lots of light users grow your brand, right? So I actually looked at the stats of this. The Arcadia Group was like the sort of the bastion of high street especially in the UK. In 2011, it took in 2.7 billion in sales, and that number has been steadily declining. It's around 2.3 billion is what I saw. Is this because of your marketing strategy that's damaging the long-term health of the company, or is it just because it's a challenging market?
Yeah, it's not all my fault.
Yeah.
At least I'm.
Is that too severe?
Yeah, it's not. It's certainly not.
Well, the stats speak for themselves. I may as well ask the question.
Yeah, no. So yeah, the numbers are there, yeah, for sure. So again, over that period of time, we had ASOS have ramped up significantly. So there's a big amount of your pie being eaten by ASOS. Boohoo Group didn't exist then, and now they're almost £1 billion turnover company. So there's a huge market dynamic and shift. And where their growth came from a kind of a zero start, and so they could disrupt on pricing and promotion and all the things that we sort of said earlier, those customers that you have not spoken to in a marketing term are going to start looking around and shopping around because there is more choice. Mm-hmm. And the harder part when you're in a business that's declined is to carry on with your commitment to invest when you didn't have to do it before. So in many ways, it looks like a slightly new investment.
Mm-hmm. So you see, I always try and tie this back to TV. You know, how can TV help marketers like Sabio make those critical decisions? I don't even like the word branding anymore because TV is a performance medium too. Mm-hmm. It sells your products. I mean, I don't know what else is more of a performance medium than that. But I think this problem with branding, I don't know if it has the right connotation. So do you think TV, as an organisation, could do a little bit more to sort of promote actually what it does for brands?
Yeah, obviously I know there's loads of studies out there about the value of TV and the importance it has in the mix. And there's Thinkbox, there's the guys that were on earlier. And I do think there's a perception around how much investment you need to get your TV campaigns off the ground. And so if you haven't actually done it before and you're looking to set up, then you've got to consider not just the media costs, which the guy from was it Mediacom had a good point around how much of it actually goes into media, how much of it goes into services, how much of it goes into tech, and how much of it goes into the actual production. Mm. And so I think there's a fear of that initial cost. And I also think a lot of the test and learn approach that we do in digital isn't necessarily translated across your broader broadcast comms channels like TV. Yeah. So as and when kind of people get their sort of matrix of testing sorted and agree that there is a commitment to be made on that front, then I think it would help. And I wonder if the TV guys can either help fund that or kind of release a little bit of a sort of test and learn approach for them.
Okay, that's a good idea. So there's a huge session on this tomorrow about campaign effectiveness, and for brands who have sort of, let's say, decimated their brand and gone too far down the sort of performance route, mm-hmm. what steps should they start taking to grow their brand? What do you recommend you do from this point?
So something I've done in the last, ongoing, I guess, over the last year is I put together a kind of summary of what our digital investment has been versus our so-called brand investment. I then translate that into an overall marketing number. And so then we can kind of flip it back on its side, if you like, and say, well, our overall marketing investment seems to be stagnating. We've got a kind of a new customer issue, and then I take that to like the C-suite essentially, of which there are 7 MDs and so on and so forth. And then I overlaid it with both of the books that we actually spoke about earlier. So the How Brands Grow. Did
they read them?
I didn't give them the book. I probably had some of the busiest charts you've ever seen where I've tried to summarise Les Burnett on one slide. Yeah. So sorry, Les, but I did try. And I replay that every 6 months and talk about the journey that we're trying to go on. So You know, we did have a slightly more brand-focused campaign for Topshop recently. It's the start of hopefully something that will grow into more channels over the coming 12 months. But it does take a kind of almost like a refresh and a bit of an education. And what I found fascinating about doing it was I was very fortunate in my previous role, or one of my previous roles. I was the business director of McDonald's. And at that time, I know Sam's probably in the room, but at that time they had a massive investment around changing the perception of what it was to be a McDonald's customer. And they had a huge slice about talking to the mums that might buy the food and about the kind of homegrown produce or kind of more local produce. And it does help to change those perceptions of what the brands are. And so I've seen the power of what TV can do for brands across the different areas.
Yeah, and in this sort of change, if you like, to tackle this problem, are you doing anything differently with your agency? Is there any, I don't know, a performance-based or outcomes-based model that you're adopting with them?
Well, do you know what we've done? We haven't gone that far yet, to be honest.
Okay.
But we have had lots of sessions around, again, this kind of almost proving evidence-based approaches to what we're trying to suggest that they do.
Yeah.
So showing the case studies, proving the points, trying to create those test and learn approaches, and again, slightly fortuitously, I guess, because we have got 7 brands, we don't necessarily have to go with kind of a one-shot approach. We can actually go with a suite and go, well, if we want to target this brand and say it's Topshop, and we know the audience for that's going to be huge, and therefore the costs are going to be quite significant. On the other end of the scale, you might have a smaller brand where you can try and improve the concept, and then kind of translate that learning back across. So that's the kind of areas that we're focused on at the moment.
Okay. I think Sam's being really candid here. If there's anyone who wants to ask him a question before we sort of wrap up, then you're welcome to do it now. Now's your chance. And remember, if you ask a question, you get a book. It's worth 25 quid. Does anyone else like to have a question? He's being very honest and open here. Anyone brave enough? Okay, no. Okay, I've got a few sort of closing questions.
Post lunch tired.
Can I ask when you go to Google and Facebook, are they you consider them partners?
Yep. Yep. Still.
Love that phrase. So when you go to them and you say, our brand's a little bit in trouble here, what do they say? Buy more Google.
Buy more Google.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, they never said buy more Facebook. No, it's a much more fluid conversation, actually. So we will have workshops based on how to understand the insights from the data that you do have to inform what your brand propositions or strategies or customer sets and subsets should be.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite good fuel to then take into non-digital channels anyway. And by, you've essentially got this plethora of learning that is only being executed in a certain, I guess, part of the marketing mix.
Yeah.
But you've got all the insights now.
So you do brand building workshops with Google and Facebook.
Yeah.
Would you like to see those sort of like TV companies come into your office to do the same thing?
Certainly, yeah, absolutely.
Have you reached out to them to
we
engage
did,
with them?
Do you know what? We did one with ITV about maybe 6 or 8 months ago.
How was that?
It was fascinating to watch the guys who've only used TV as a kind of DRTV executional thing to see what partnerships that ITV have done with the likes of Matalan, or I think they had a great one with Sayat and a few others. And it helped bring to life the room, and then we did a subsequent workshop. And now what we've got to do is obviously keep building on that. So it's about building momentum. Your question earlier is kind of how do you change it? And it does take that kind of, you start telling the dial, you do the educational piece, you bring the right partner to try and help deliver on the inspiration at kind of like the MD level, and then you have to work with the different teams in the marketing functions to keep it bubbling away and probing, because you can't change, especially in a business as big as ours, you can't change anything that quickly. No,
so 2020, if you're going to pick 1 or 2 things that you need to change within an organisation, what would they be? Sort of to see this sort of positive change,
I think the risk outcome is to have an actual dedicated amount of budget, whether that's coming out of my digital budget, fixed for non-immediate ROAS-based things, because that again, that's that performance.
ROAS?
Yeah, I know, it's a terrible thing. Return on investment, return on ad spend. And so once that gets part of the conversation, people do turn to the digital/performance.
Yeah.
Way of thinking. And I think, again, part of those sessions that we've done is talking about how long it takes to see the payback of those campaigns. And so talking about, what happens if you start now, what happens in 6 months, and what happens in 12 months. And so we've done some work with the likes of Ubiquity have come in. We've had our agency come in and talk about their modelling approaches. So it's kind of, it's having the right budgets allocated for the right things with the right measures against it.
It's a great way to end. Let's give Sab here a big round of applause for coming on stage and talking so openly.
Thank you.